Garland in the corner. He's got it.
Feed stamps. Pow! With the running in.
Mitchell shakes. Up to the basket. And thunders it home. Oh! Mobley throws it down.
And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
Hello and welcome to the Chase Down podcast. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost. There's no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, that was a basketball game. The Cleveland Cavaliers rebounded from their Monday night loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder with an immediately very good effort in the first half, and then proceeded to score 38 points in the second half, but held off a furious Hornets comeback for a 94-87 win. Our dear friend Justin is still gallivanting around Mexico, so I am pleased to be joined by Tony Pesta. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I think this is my first time on the actual Chase Down Pod YouTube channel. I've been on the Spotify, Apple side of things, but I haven't been on the YouTube channel I think. So thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I wish we could have just recorded a halftime and called it a day. You know, like that might have been more fun than the second half. But now we got to talk about both.
Well, you have the privilege of being on video because and have it in the past because my dear co-host, while he does all the other work, doesn't know how to get our video stream live, but we love Justin in spite of that one very specific limitation, while he does literally every other piece of work, as I was whining to you before we started about having to do all the stuff he normally does. It was a weird game, Tony, and like just off the rip, just reading some, just box score reading, these teams combined to go 16 of 87 from three. It was really interesting to me, by the way. Because Legler just as the Hornets hit a three or two, it was like, oh, they finally got one to go, and I'm like, brother, it's just as bad on the other side of the floor. And to some extent, do you just kind of think that the Cavs this just kind of might be what it is while they're waiting on Darius and Sam and Max, where they don't have a ton of on ball creation. And all their best shooters are either not playing or not in form.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about what is this team's identity? What's their identity? What are they doing on offense? And you never want to just make the injury excuse, because certainly there are plenty of things on the court that we can talk about. I thought Donovan Mitchell, for example, had a pretty shaky game, pretty rough game. We'll talk about Evan Mobley kind of disappearing offensively in the second half. But when you do just look at who's on the court and what type of talent you're playing with, yeah, I mean, not having three of your most consistent best three-point shooters, that's going to have an effect, right? And I think that we saw that against OKC, which is a terrible matchup not to have those three guys available. But even against a Hornets team that has been playing better basketball recently, I know I was watching on the FanDuel broadcast, and they really highlighted some of the wins that Charlotte had picked up recently. They just beat the Thunder by 26 points, I think. They eviscerated the Jazz by 55 points. They went into this game with the second best offense in the NBA over the last 2 weeks. And the Cavs have been the 24th best defense over that same stretch. And so right away, you could see that there could be a pretty bad combination working here. But like we said in that first half, they were doing everything right. I mean, this was a really, really good focused effort in that first half. And then in the second half, it kind of felt like everything that they were doing right in that first half went out the window. I will say, you kind of got to survive this stretch of the season with the injuries that you're having, really just with the way that you've been playing recently. Like, a win's a win. We're not at the point with this team where, we're going to break down the second half and talk about what went wrong, but it's hard to nitpick about how they're winning when we're at a point where they just need to stack wins and get something to feel good about, right? Like, do you remember last season after the All-Star break when they won 15 in a row and people were complaining that we're not winning by enough points? How come these games are close again? We're supposed to be blowing out every team. And it's we have come so far from those days where we could really criticize how they're winning at this point. To me, we can worry about being perfect later. Right now, you just got to survive this stretch, get healthy, and hopefully hit your stride when it matters.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, they've won 8 of their last 12 games. I know they've had a few real clunkers in there, but 8 of 12 is more in line of what I had expectations for for this season. So the fact that they are maybe not playing their best basketball, or getting to last year's standards as of yet, but still winning at a respectable clip against some pretty tough competition in many stretches. And again, I did not expect a walkover victory in this one, just because I know how the Hornets have been playing. I did want to just talk about the defense a little bit, because I actually think the defense was pretty solid in both halves of this game. But how much would you put to the Hornets just having pretty atrocious 3-point shot making versus what the Cavs were doing?
It's definitely a mixture of both, right? Like, you do have to be honest with yourself and say that the Hornets missed some open looks. They missed some good looks. But I thought, and no, I do agree, by the way, even with how it felt like the game got out of hand in the second half, they still only finished with 87 points, which in today's NBA, holding a team under 90 points is insane, especially a team that was one of the best offenses here recently. And so I think the Cavs, in the first half especially, they just played so focused. They're defending on a string, they're communicating, and those are the two things that you need in the NBA to be a good defense: is you need to communicate and you need to play hard. And I think we've seen at times this season the Cavs have been without one of those at any given time, right? You have half the team playing really hard with really no direction or communication, and then the other half of the team that's just kind of standing around. It's either you're closing out to everybody or you're not closing out to anybody, and they had both problems across down the roster with each person. And so in this game, I thought that both of those things were going in their favor for most of the game. I honestly think most of the things that went wrong kind of all stemmed from the offense. Some of those turnovers that led to easy opportunities for the Hornets to score, that's where they were getting a lot of their opportunities, not so much half-court defense falling apart. And yeah, like I said, I think they were playing with a purpose on both ends of the floor and playing connected on defense, and which is one thing that they haven't done this year, right? It's felt individuals have shined, but the team hasn't been good. There hasn't been clean rotations. It hasn't seemed like the communication's anywhere near where it was in the past. And part of that is because you're playing guys who are relatively inexperienced, right? Naquan Tomlin plays as hard as anybody, but he's going to miss a rotation every now and then because he's a two-way player in basically his rookie season, right? Same thing with Jalen Tyson. He plays hard, but he's not always in the right spot at the right time. And then you have other guys, like I mentioned, where maybe the effort isn't always there. But today I thought the defense overall was great because, listen, I said at the top, you hold the team to 87 points, you're doing something right on defense, even if they're missing some shots that they probably could have made.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I had to do that kind of analysis of hey, is this am I just playing the result here? Because sometimes I feel like this fan base will play the result in the other direction, right? Where it'll be hey, they're guarding fine, they're just giving up, they're just making their threes that they do have. And I don't think I'm playing the result here. Especially the point of attack defense, I just thought was really, really strong. I thought Evan had one of his best games guarding on the perimeter that he's had all year. I feel like there's been some slightly perceptible slippage for him on switches, just being a little off balanced, getting baited into foul calls or taking that one step out that gives them the step to get by him. I thought he was unbelievable on the perimeter. I thought Jarrett did a nice job switching whenever he got pulled out there. And then Jalen, Dean, I thought Dean was excellent in this game. Larry gave you good minutes. I just don't think that they really let the Hornets get downhill too much. Con Knipple killed them in their last game. And while, yeah, the jumper wasn't going for him, I didn't really think the 2-point looks were that much better for him, where he was just getting challenged pretty much throughout the entire possession every time. And I think this just really goes to show you what putting up just 20 to 30% better on ball defense does for your rim protection. I think sometimes people look at this team and go, oh, well, they've got those two bigs back there, so their point of attack defense doesn't matter that much. And I guess in the most macro sense, that might be true. But at the end of the day, what putting up a little bit of resistance on the front end does is let them have a little time to rotate without giving up the easy dunker spot duck in from the guy they're guarding. So I just wanted to shout out their point of attack defense, because I really do think that was a strength for them tonight.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, especially when you just think about the last 2 weeks here where they have really slipped in the defensive ratings. Like, it hasn't been good for a little while here. And despite that, you look at Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, I think they've been playing pretty good defense during this stretch. Like, Evan Mobley's been averaging like 3 blocks a game for the last few weeks, but that hasn't resulted in the team being a good defensive team. And yeah, another 3 blocks tonight. But as you were saying, when you do put in that extra effort to where it's not just that the floodgates aren't open all night and Mobley and Allen are being overextended trying to cover up all of that, it actually makes them even better, and it makes the team obviously better because now you're not getting into rotation as often, which we already kind of talked about with some of the miscommunications and the scrambly plays. Well, one way to cut down on that is to just stop getting into rotation.
Yeah,
so easily.
Don't get into rotation
like
when they haven't done anything
simple
to earn it.
Exactly. And so Wade, I'm glad that you mentioned Wade because him getting back from injury and playing good defense again, like that is one of the more underrated things about this team. Tyson, we have seen, can be a really good on-ball defender, and he has his moments where he's not always alert off ball, but I thought he was good tonight. I thought really across the board, everyone gave good effort. And you mentioned Larry Nance Jr. too. I wanted to shout him out. Good minutes from Larry. I was really happy to see that. He hasn't really played meaningful minutes since November. And so to get him back from injury, and they kind of took a cautious approach to reintroducing him to the rotation. Listen, he wasn't anything amazing, but I thought he gave really quality minutes. He looked good on defense. He had that nice dunk in the first half. It's just good to see Larry Nance Jr. out there playing some actual basketball.
Yeah, he made a lot of really good connector plays, and like that's the Larry I thought I was getting this summer. Was like, even on a night where he's not making a crazy box score impact, it's poke outs. It's, it's setting, he had a couple really nice dribble handoffs where he really got big and screened off his man to create a nice look for Donovan. The passing's there. The kind of the chaos plays are there. I thought, and even some soft stuff, like they're on an inbound. I want to say it was Diabate caught the ball at like half court and was kind of pinned against the baseline. And Larry just got up into his space and really challenged the ball and just 3 seconds off the shot clock. Like, and I know these sound small, but like these are like a lot of the small things this team hasn't consistently done this year. And like I'm glad you shouted out Larry, because I wanted to see him have a part to play. I know Tomlin is definitely on his corner right now, rotationally. But I felt like Larry had something to add in this game, and he did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just having some optionality, right? Having another option, someone who it's been kind of used as a criticism against Larry throughout his career, the kind of jack of all trades, master of none criticism that people will launch at him. But at the same time, having a guy who's well-rounded and just average at basically everything can be really helpful to you, especially when you're the 9th or 10th guy off the bench, right? Like having a backup big is something this team hasn't had at any point in the Core 4 era. And so if Larry Nance Jr. is able to come in and even give you, I don't know exactly how many minutes he played today. 13 solid minutes off the bench. Like, I'll take that any day of the week. So I was really happy to see him out there. And I don't know if I'd say this is his best game of the season, but he hasn't had many games like this before the injury too. So this was encouraging to see.
Yeah, they needed him in this game, and I want to say he led the team in plus minus. Yes, he did. A plus 14 in his 13 minutes. And again, not like he did all that, but like I think it's sometimes plus minuses feel fake. Sometimes they feel real. That felt like a real one. And to pivot back to Dean, who, the offensive game still is not caught up. Like, he's going through kind of one of his worst stretches in his career as a shooter. Like, the volume's down, and it was not that high to begin with. To be honest, he's down to 32% from three. He has to guard like this and rebound like this if he wants to, if he's gonna play. And like, I know that sounds kind of like damning with faint praise, but like it is giving him his flowers, because like they really needed him in transition. He allowed the bigs to switch out a lot easier without giving up size inside to the Bridges and Diabates of the world, who will mash when you put a switch down there. So yeah, I thought that was a good call out that Dean did play a very nice game.
Yeah, it's easy to crush Dean Wade or to focus on the fact that like as much as you can see that he is a talented 3-point shooter, like it's just never fully got there to where he's like a 3-and-D, one of those premier 3-and-D players in the NBA, which maybe 2-3 years ago you might have been able to convince yourself he could develop into. That hasn't happened. The ship has sailed on Dean Wade just being a flamethrower or an absolute gunner from behind
We'll
the
always have
line.
the Celtics game, Tony.
We'll always have it. That was the vision right there. If you were holding on to your Dean Wade stock, that would have been the moment where you should have sold it. But I still have some Dean Wade stock though, because here's the thing: I have made peace with the fact that he is not going to be that player on a consistent basis. And so when I look at Dean Wade for who he is, this is a guy who plays borderline elite perimeter defense, switchable defense when he's at his best. I think it's taken a slight step backwards this year, like in years
not
past,
tonight.
especially
Tonight,
last year.
Tonight felt
yeah.
like a very pronounced difference from what we've gotten this season defensively.
For sure. And I think part of that is just at the beginning of the year, he spent a lot of time with only one of Mobley or one of Allen. And I think when you have the two bigs behind him and you have a player like Wade, who's a very smart and capable defender, but he knows where to funnel his man, right? And when there's not that backline of defense behind you, basically what I'm trying to say is he's not someone who can single-handedly lead your defense, but as the third best defender on the floor, he's a really great option to have. And then you look at it, nine rebounds tonight, 8 defensive. The ball doesn't stick in his hands. You know, we might complain that sometimes he passes up shots, but at least he's not holding on to it and wasting time. 4 assists tonight, by the way, which is pretty solid for Dean. And so again, when you look at him for who he
career
is,
high.
yeah, I'd have to imagine. I didn't look it up. I didn't even realize he had 4 until I just looked at the box score. It was a jump scare. But
second on the team in assists.
That's crazy. That's actually wild.
The Cavs had 20 assists to 20 turnovers tonight.
Yeah, it felt like that.
It
honestly.
wasn't pretty.
I tweeted this. Their last 3 games, they had 20 turnovers tonight, 21 against OKC, and I believe 18 against Philadelphia.
It might have been 19 because I want to say they're at 60 the last 3 games.
It might depend on which box score you look at, because I know sometimes the ESPN and NBA one can be different. I think I looked at NBA.com and they showed 18, but either way, it's not good, right? Either way, it's been very careless with the ball recently, and some of them, I feel like a lot of them have felt unforced, and I honestly think, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but probably the biggest reason this game got stressful in the second half is because they just started throwing the ball away, and the offense looked incredibly unfocused, which has kind of always been the downfall of this team, is usually the offense. There's games where the defense gets torched. There's games where they're not rebounding, but usually if I'm frustrated with the Cavs, it's because they can't score the ball. And I know we've focused on the fact that they held Charlotte to 80s.
Ben Cox always says on Twitter, they lose because of their offense. Like, if they lose, they lose because of their offense. It's one of my favorite. Sometimes it's nice, dude, when someone just reduces it to a single sentence, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It might sound like you're oversimplifying it, but sometimes it is that simple. Sometimes basketball can be a very simple game. And yeah, shout out to Ben, because I always love when he tweets that. And it's right. It's been true for 4 years now. When they lose more often than not, I feel like it's because of their offense. And again, like, sure, you held Charlotte to 87, but you only scored 94. And I know you're down 3 of your best shooters and everything, but this is a team that's capable of scoring more than 94, especially against a Hornets team that probably isn't capable of stopping you on your best night. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the turnovers, but one last thing on the Dean front, because I did want to make sure I got this conversation in. You saw after they announced the starting lineup that it was going to be Dean again. You saw some folks online, some folks in our Discord kind of being like, hey, why not Craig? You know, Craig gives them a little extra ball handling in that lineup. You know, with Dean, especially without Darius there, you know, it can get a little gunky offensively. What is your thoughts on that? Should they just roll with this 5 and just get some continuity? Would you do Craig there? Curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I thought about this during the OKC game too, because I don't think there's I don't feel strongly one way or the other, not to cop out here, but I can see the case for both, because on one hand, we understand that Donovan Mitchell's at his best when he has a point guard next to him, and this team, especially that starting lineup, could definitely use some extra ball handling, which Craig Porter Jr. has really helped them in this department this year, right? Like I think this has been the best season of his career so far. He's been very helpful off the bench. He would absolutely be deserving of starting in place of Darius Garland right now. But the case for Dean Wade, I guess, is basically just a floor spacing and a defensive thing. Like Craig's been a good defender.
I don't think you're getting the spacing this year.
Well,
I don't think he's getting guarded.
That's the problem right there, is that if you're not going to get guarded anyways, you would rather have someone who can get to the rim and maybe take advantage of the fact that you're giving them some space. I think really it's mainly, well, the idea on paper is the spacing. We're not getting that. The other idea that we did get is the defensive impact, which again, Craig has been helpful on defense, but
not
it's
like
different
Dean.
when you're 6'9". Yeah, it's different when you're 6'9". You could rebound like that. And Craig had 2 blocks tonight on the 7'1" Ryan Kalkbrenner right there. So I mean, this is 3 blocks on 7-footers in the last 2 games for Craig. So I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting his defense, but when you're 6'1", it's a lot harder to be as impactful as Dean Wade was.
Yeah, the only thing that I started the game, and I even started this podcast kind of being like, I think I would go with Craig there just for the on-ball dynamicism and stuff. The only problem with that is all of a sudden then, if like, let's say you did that in this game, then you're bringing Dean, Larry, DeAndre, and Naquan all off the bench. That's a lot of bigs to try to slot into the rotation.
It makes it easier if you just start Dean.
It just kind of makes it easier. So I the more I think about it, like I think if like Sam is available or something, like maybe the math changes a little bit. But yeah, I think it just kind of keeps the rotation like structurable and like not, because like this isn't 2K. You can't just sub guys out every minute. Like you do have to follow some kind of logic to what you're doing, and it just gets a lot harder when you're subbing in 5 power forwards off the bench. So like just trying to. I understand why Kenny moved the way he did rotationally in this one.
Yeah, and even with those attempts, right, like because of the injuries that we have on this roster, we still saw some really funky lineups out there, right? Like I think to start the 4th quarter, it was Larry Nance Jr., Evan Mobley, Naquan Tomlin, Jalen Tyson, and then I can't remember who the 5th person was, but I think it was
Proctor.
It was Proctor, yeah. So it was like that's a really funky lineup to throw out there. I'd imagine that group has not played a single possession together this season. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like you don't have a lot of 3-point shooting or ball handling there, but it's like you don't have that many other options to turn to. So it's like a lineup that on paper doesn't make sense and probably shouldn't have been on the floor. But then when you look at, it's like you said, it's not 2K. Guys need a rest. You can't just play certain guys 48 minutes. You have to try different lineups, especially when, the game was kind of getting out of hand. I could see Kenny being the mad scientist that he is, trying to switch things up. Clearly that lineup didn't work. He's had a couple misses with these experimental lineups at times this season. Craig Porter Jr. at small forward, or I guess it was probably Mitchell at small forward that one game when Garland, Mitchell, and Craig started. That was another kind of mad scientist that experiment didn't work out. So we've seen some misses from Kenny this year, and those have been a little bit weird and funky, but hey, it is what it is. We saw last season that everything he did worked. This year, it's been more normal for what you expect from a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as a coach, you're just trying to find a way to get in sync, and teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chat, docs, and more together, so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. One player who is very much not in sync in this game, Tony. Another really tough DeAndre performance. Only gets 13 minutes. 1 of 6 from 3. Another 4 turnovers in 13 minutes. It feels like it's going the wrong direction with him. I thought we were getting a little bit of an uptick, but I'm a little puzzled as to what to do with DeAndre with this roster right now, because I thought Kenny made the right call in playing the rotation the way he did. I mean, what do you do if you're the Cavs with DeAndre right now? You just kind of have to ride it out. It's like you can't cut it much lower than this, but like those minutes were really challenging today.
Yeah, there's been a handful of games where those minutes were challenging, and like we knew when we got DeAndre Hunter that the defense has always been less than advertised, right? Like we know that he's going to be a bit shaky on that end of the floor, but when you made that trade, he was a microwave scorer off the bench all year for Atlanta and all year for us once he got here. And this year, that just has not been the case. The 3-point shot has completely vanished. And I really don't know what to make of that, because on one hand, I think he's getting good looks, but it also doesn't feel like he's playing anywhere near the same role that he did last year in terms of like the looks are still quality, but he's getting more difficult looks mixed in there compared to what he had last year. And part of that is just the cascading effect of losing so much 3-point talent and you don't have the rim pressure that you had from last year. It's just when you're the number one offense in the NBA, it's easier to generate good looks versus where they are now. So I understand that some of that's outside of his control. With that said, the 4 turnovers is where it starts to become unacceptable, right? It's one thing if your defense is going to be a bit inconsistent. It's another thing if you're going to be shooting 1 of 6 from the 3-point line. But then to also turn the ball over at the rate that you were, you're not given anything at that point. You've gotten to the point where you're actively damaging, and the turnovers haven't been a season-long trend, but the poor shooting has, and the weird defensive effort has. And it's like you said, I don't really know what to do with him at this point, because he's far too important to this team and to whatever their ultimate ceiling is to just be like, we can't play him anymore. Like this is a guy who has to be in the rotation if you're going to reach your ceiling.
And especially where you are right now, like
Yeah.
with your roster, like you're not, taking his minutes and giving them to Thomas Bryant or Lonzo, who didn't end up playing in this game. So like to some extent you got to ride it out. I feel for the guy, because it kind of just feels like he doesn't really know what to rely on right now. Like it's like, I said this, I think on our last podcast, my brain is still kind of mush from jet lag, but like, it just doesn't even feel like he's catching the ball right. It's not like it feels like I can tell when the shot's going to go in on the catch, not on the gather, jump, and release. Like it's like he's just the ball kind of seems, and like I feel like I've, again, I'm no NBA player, but I feel like I've had stretches playing pickup where it's like, man, the ball is just not leaving my hands right. I feel like I'm doing everything the same, and it just, the ball feels foreign to me, and it kind of feels like that has been the season for DeAndre. I mean, he's flirting with dipping below 30% from 3 on the season, and like, that's the thing with DeAndre is like, yeah, the off-ball defense stuff can come and go. Yeah, the playmaking isn't really there, the rebounding isn't really there, but all that stuff was just fine when you knew you were just going to get a flamethrower as a scorer. And, he's just not finding it right now. And I think a lot of this stuff gets easier with Sam and, eventually Max Strus back in the lineup. Like, you can get away with 10 to 15 minutes of DeAndre if it's just not getting a lot better. But like, to your point, at the end of the day, they kind of need to ride this out with him, because they're not going to hit their ceiling with this version of DeAndre. They need to find a way to recover last year's by hook or by crook.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to, one of the points you were making there is, I feel like when I watch DeAndre Hunter play for a long stretch of this season, it feels like I can see him thinking on the basketball court, and that's not good. You never want to see a player actively thinking about what he's going to do when he catches the ball, or even just on defense. Like, there's times I've made the joke before where it looks like he gets scared that his man is cutting. Like, he didn't realize that his man was allowed to move off the ball. And when you see him think before he makes a rotation, you're already a step too late. And you mentioned like catching the ball. There was a turnover today where I think he was running a pick and roll with Evan Mobley to come to the ball, and he just like brain freezes and doesn't throw that entry pass until it's way too late, and it's a turnover going the other way. And it's just, you can see him thinking. Things aren't coming seamlessly to him right now. And my theory with DeAndre Hunter is that if the shot comes around and it starts falling again, I think the rest of his game naturally falls into place. And it's not good to say that, a poor shooting night can affect the rest of your game to this degree. Like, I'm not excusing this as being like, oh, it's okay, he just needs to hit his shots. But it's just kind of the reality. I think he just seems like the type of player where if the shot's not falling, there's a snowball effect in the worst way for every other aspect of his game.
Yeah, well, it just makes sense, dude, because like it's not even like that stuff has to get better. Like all the soft skill stuff has to make a big jump, because it just gets easier. Like, you don't have to work. Your handle doesn't have to be as tight if guys are flying at you to try to close out against a 3, as opposed to, just kind of chopping their feet and seeing what's going to happen because they don't trust you're going to make it. Like, your reads are easier when you have a straight up 4-on-3 as opposed to like a 4-on-3.5, as defenses are kind of in half rotation because they didn't have to close out on you as hard. Like, I just think that stuff even if it doesn't get better, it gets better by functionally. And it just stops being a problem, really.
Yeah, because like so much of basketball is rhythm. It really is a rhythm game. And when you're that out of sync offensively, even just as an individual, right? Like just your shot is that out of sync, your handle is that out of whack. The rest of the game becomes so much more difficult for you to find like where your pocket is, where you fit in with the team. And again, just to oversimplify it, I think the shot, if it ever returns, which I have faith it will return because we have seen that he is a better shooter. He's a better shooter than what he's shown by like a mile. So at some point, it has to at least return to like league average. I know he's a better shooter than that, but at least league average. And I think as the team gets healthier too, knock on wood, and he finds his shot, maybe you see him kind of fall back into place and it all makes sense again. But right now it's getting really, really rough.
Yeah, it is. I do want to talk about someone who also had a very rough shooting game in Jalen Tyson. He's human, gang. Goes 1 of 9 from 3 on his normal diet of looks. I didn't think he was really forcing it or pressing in a material way. Maybe a couple were a little tough, but like for the most part, these were Jalen Tyson shots. I thought he still gave them good minutes in this game. He ties Larry for the best plus minus on the team at plus 14. And I thought this was a good example of finding ways to help, even if the jumper isn't falling. What did you think of his game?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I think that's kind of been the difference between Tyson and Hunter this season, not to bring it back to Hunter too much, but like we have seen Tyson has not only shot the ball better, but even when he isn't, he's finding other ways to contribute. And that's kind of why he's lapped him in the starting lineup here and why he slotted right in there. I was actually surprised. I didn't realize he was 1 of 9 from 3, but it does make sense because I think this is the first time. I know his career is very short. It's very young so far, but I feel like this is the first time I've watched Jalen Tyson miss a momentum three-pointer, like more than once, too. There's a couple in the fourth quarter where he goes up with it, and I'm like, oh, of course he's going to make that. He's done that a dozen times already this season, and then he missed, again. And I was like, wow, okay, I get, like you said, he really is human, but even outside of that, like, okay, you're going to have nights where the three-point shot doesn't fall. We get that. And I love that he has no fear of taking them, right? Like, he went 1 of 9 tonight, and I'm not saying I want someone who's not shooting well to just jack him up there, but if the defense is leaving you open, you got to keep him honest. And I think he did a good job of not only taking the shots when they're there, but not settling to a degree where I'm like, okay, you're just firing away and you don't have it tonight. Like, I thought all those threes, for the most part, came within the flow of the offense. And one thing that he's been able to do, even when he's not shooting the ball well, is he's going to set a screen, catch the ball in the short roll, and get this offense moving, right? Like we talk about the Cavs not getting into rotation defensively. Jalen Tyson's good at getting the opponent into rotation because he'll set you a good screen, and when he gets the ball around the free throw line area, he's going to know what to do with it. He's either going up with a floater, which has been absolute money this season. I've really enjoyed watching that develop. And earlier in the game, he threw a really nice lob to Jared Allen. So we're seeing the playmaking too, where not only can he actually spray it out to the three-point line, but he's getting the bigs involved too. So I've really loved Jalen Tyson's progression this year. I had no expectation that he would be not even just a rotational player, but like a starter. This is like, I couldn't be happier with the way he's developed. And yeah, not the best shooting night, but I think he's earned plenty of goodwill from behind the 3-point line for a while here, to where I can stomach a 1 of 9 shooting night from him.
Yeah, and he goes 6 of 8 from 2. I thought his 2-man game with Donovan late in the game was something that consistently got them good looks when they really weren't getting any good looks. And something he did in this game that I really appreciated, that the Cavs have not always consistently done well, is he played the Hornets pressure against them. The Hornets got so physical in the second half. Kenny had there was a soundbite from Kenny during one of the timeouts where he was talking about how they have to answer the physical pressure. They're pulling, they're grabbing, they're lunging, and like a lot of back cuts from Jalen, where he would kind of fake to go towards a screen and then get open into space with a back cut to get a clean angle. Like just a lot of that, like using the defender's momentum against you. And like part of that's just him being big and strong and being able to stay on balanced when they're doing that and not getting kind of caught up by the holding and grabbing. So I thought he had a really balanced off ball game as well, which is not something I've been like obviously the short roll stuff has been good, but like I felt like his work as a cutter tonight was really strong as well.
Yeah, I think he's just a gamer, like he's going to read whatever the game is asking of him. And every single time this year, it feels like he rises to the occasion and matches whatever it is the team needs from him. I'm not saying that he's been perfect every game,
Nope.
but it feels like whatever the temperature of that game is, he's rising up to meet it. And like the physicality, he's maybe the most fearless person on this team. I guess Donovan is probably in there too, but like this dude has no conscience, I mean. And like, for a second-year player to have that level of delusional confidence in himself, it could give and take in certain scenarios, but I'll take it every day of the week because we've seen the results have been overwhelmingly positive. And this is a guy who, for better or worse, like you're going to trust him. When the chips are down, when you get in the playoffs, I know he's basically a redshirt rookie, and we don't know what it's going to look like in the playoffs, but I feel pretty comfortable right now saying that I'm going to trust him. This is a ride or die player for me already.
I said it on our last podcast with Danny, about his making the game-winning play to Evan against Philly. He plays the game as he sees it in front of him, and like that is something that the Cavs desperately need from their role players is just to play, and to not overthink and to not overly concern themselves with what they're supposed to be doing within the construct of their role. He's just making reads and trusting in his process. And like, I don't know if they win this game without some really timely stuff from him. Before we go, just a couple little stray shouts. Thought Evan's drive game in the first half, very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, it was everything I want to see. I'm very upset.
I wanted to see more.
Yeah, I think he took 2 field goal attempts in the second half, one of which was a 3-point attempt. He did get to the line one time, but I think he only had 1 point in the second half. He had 13 points and 11 rebounds at halftime. He felt like a monster in the first half. I mean, it looked like he could get whatever he wanted. He was playing with so much confidence. And the Cavs, like, here's the thing. I understand, like, there's been all this discussion about how do we unlock Evan Mobley? How do we get him involved in the offense? It's really not rocket science. The dude seems pretty straightforward in terms of like, if you can get him the ball moving downhill, I know it's not this simple. I know basketball's more complicated than that, but if you can just get him the ball moving downhill with a screen from Dean Wade, like we saw in the first half, that's really all he needs to get to his spots. And I think the best players in the NBA, they know where their spots are, and they spend the entire game relentlessly trying to get to those comfort zones. And for Evan Mobley, while he may not be like a Jokic level offensive talent or anything like that, he is good enough to where he has spots on the floor where he can dominate. Something as simple as like, hey, one dribble of separation past my man, bump them a little bit with my shoulder and go up with the post hook. That's something that you could replicate at pretty much any given time in the game. And again, I know it's not that simple, and I know opponents are well aware that Mobley wants that shot as well, and they're working very hard to take it away from him. But it feels like sometimes Mobley and the Cavs just get away from even trying to get those plays and get him involved in those zones. And that's where it becomes very frustrating and confusing on a night like tonight, where the first half was Evan Mobley's world. He could do no wrong. And then the second half, the offense gets completely away from him. And the blame goes everywhere, right? His teammates, the coaching staff, and Mobley himself. This is something that I'm not saying he needs to be a 25 point per game scorer, but on nights where he has it, he has to have it. Like, you can't just go away from him in the second half. And we've seen that a lot throughout his career and this season.
Yeah, for sure. And on it, and like I am like the captain of the don't just do straight up Evan post up team, but like if they're switching Zion James onto him, this is not a very big Hornets team, and they were switching a decent amount, and there were advantages that could have been exploited, if not just to try to get you some open looks on the perimeter when they bring help, because like you got to bring help if you got a guard on Evan, like, and he catches it with decent post position. Like, they're at least going to have to dig down, and I think it's indicative of the lack of playmaking in the second half that Evan finishes this game with 0 assists and only 2 turnovers. So it's like they weren't really forcing the issue with him. They just kind of looked elsewhere, and especially on a night where Donovan really didn't have it going. Played, I thought, probably the worst floor game of the season as far as I've seen. You really got to get Evan the ball. I did want to talk real quick about Donovan, those legs looked heavy. Tony. Do you look at maybe giving him a day off? It's a busy month. Obviously no Darius. Or do you say, hey, we don't have Darius and Sam, so Donovan, we just need you to be a workhorse for us? Like how long term are you thinking with him?
You gotta think long term, I think, and I know like the present has been very sketchy, and I said earlier that the Cavs are kind of in survival mode, but there is a back-to-back coming up. They've played I think they've played every other day this entire month, pretty much.
Yeah, it was
it's
2
been a
days off
grueling
between the
schedule.
Thunder game, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's been it. And so I don't know like whether or not you rest him or not. That's not my decision, but I do know that the load is starting to add up, right? He's played a ton of minutes this year. He has had to carry this team in a way that he really hasn't had to do for most of his time in Cleveland. Like Darius has been banged up before, but like this is by far the thinnest the rotation has been for the Cavs, I would say. And yeah, I mean like tonight I thought he forced the issue. 8 of 20 shooting, 8 field goals, 8 turnovers, right? Like, I just don't think the decision making was really all that on point. And the truth is, the Cavs haven't won many games where Mitchell played like this. So on one hand, you could say it's pretty cool that they were able to win despite a pretty poor performance from Donovan Mitchell. But it is just another reminder of how important Darius Garland is to this team, because you do need a point guard next to Donovan Mitchell. You need someone who can not only take some of that load away from him, but also rein in some of his bad habits when it comes to pressing the issue or some of the playmaking limitations that he has shown in the past. Like, I know it's people will point to all the limitations that Darius Garland has, but when this team is at their best and when that backcourt is at its best is when each member is kind of lifting each other up and covering for their weaknesses. And when you don't have Darius out there and you have a bad game from Donovan Mitchell, you can see how badly you need a point guard.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining and being my surrogate, Justin. You do great work. Where can the people find you?
First off, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's always fun talking basketball with you. And yeah, you can find me at Fear the Sword, writing some blogs over there, and then on
My
YouTube
alma
and
mater.
Twitter at Tony Pesta. Yeah, shout out to the Fear the Sword alums.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. You do great work. Go check out Fear the Sword. Tony and Jackson, those guys just do awesome work. And you know who else does awesome work? Our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chase Down podcast. If you're a fan of the podcast, like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe to the pod. Help cook those books. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the Cavs YouTube channel. Thank you very much for listening. We will be going live next week with Justin back. And thank you very much for listening as always. And goodbye.